That night, she finally brought it up. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, scrolling through my phone, pretending to care about some useless article on productivity tips. Claire came out of the bathroom with her hair wrapped in a towel, damp strands sticking out, her face looking softer than usual, softer than it had been in days. She stood there, pausing like she was debating whether to speak, and then broke the silence. "Why haven't you touched me all week?" she asked, her voice quiet but sharp around the edges. I lifted my eyes from the phone. She was searching my face for something, guilt, reassurance, maybe even a fight. All I gave her was a long breath and a steady stare. "I'm just getting ready for life as a bachelor," I said. The words hit like a plate dropped on tile, not shattered, but cracked straight down the middle. I saw the emotions roll across her face in quick flashes, confusion, then irritation, then panic. "What is that supposed to mean?" she snapped, her tone suddenly sharp, not quiet anymore. I didn't rush to answer. I set my phone on the nightstand, leaned back, and stared at the ceiling fan turning in lazy circles. I wanted her to sit in the silence for once. To feel the emptiness I'd been drowning in all week. The truth? I hadn't rehearsed that line. It wasn't planned. It just slipped out, raw and unpolished, because that's exactly where I was, adjusting to the reality that our marriage wasn't what I thought it was. A week earlier, I'd stumbled across a truth that doesn't hit like a scream. It seeps in like a slow leak. It drips into your head until it's all you can think about. It started with a phone. Not hers, mine. Or at least, the one on our shared account. An alert popped up about unusual data usage. Normally I'd ignore it, but that night something made me look. What I found stopped me cold, midnight activity that wasn't mine. Messages. Video calls. All tied to her number. Midnight. 2 in the morning. 4. I didn't confront her right away. I just watched. Observed. Like I'd been shoved into some cruel reality show where the grand prize was either the truth or total heartbreak. So I kept the routine. Every morning I'd wake up next to her, kiss her cheek before work, listen to her stories about errands and meetings, nodding like I was still the same loyal husband. And every night, when she slipped out of bed for water or to check emails, I'd catch the glow of her phone down the hallway, hear the muffled laughter, the sighs. So when she asked me why I hadn't touched her in a week, the answer was simple. Touching her felt like lying. She had no clue that I already knew. Not yet. And maybe it was cruel to let her think I was just tired or stressed, but I needed that space. I needed time to imagine what life would feel like without her in my arms. And honestly, it wasn't as unbearable as I thought. It was lonely, sure. Cold, yeah. But also clear. So I said it out loud, "I'm preparing for life as a bachelor." And her face showed me she had no idea how close we already were to living separate lives. Her reaction was almost ridiculous, though there wasn't a thing funny about it. "What are you even talking about, a bachelor?" Claire snapped, yanking the towel from her head and tossing it onto the chair. Wet hair clung to her shoulders. "You're seriously saying you want a divorce? Just because you've been moody? Out of nowhere?" I laughed, but not the laugh she used to love. This one was bitter, jagged. Out of nowhere? "Claire, nothing about this is out of nowhere." That froze her. She wrapped her arms around herself like she'd suddenly felt a chill. I got up, walked to the dresser, pulled out a clean t-shirt, not because I needed it, but because my hands were shaking. "You think I haven't noticed?" I said. "The late-night calls, the secrecy, the way you clutch your phone like it's a vault?" Her lips parted. For a split second, I saw fear. Or maybe calculation. But she recovered quick, shook her head, and rolled her eyes. "You're paranoid. That's ridiculous. I can't believe you'd accuse me of..." "Don't. I cut her off, voice low but firm. Don't you dare gaslight me. The ceiling fan hummed, my heart pounded, and the room felt tighter by the second. The thing is, I hadn't even told her the half of it. I'd already checked the logs. Already knew those late-night numbers weren't work. I'd even run one through a lookup. A name came back. Some guy I'd never met but who apparently had a place in my marriage now. And here she was, standing 10 feet away, acting like I was crazy. You've been distant, she finally said, softening her tone, trying a different angle. Maybe I've been on my phone more, but that's work. Stress. You've been cold to me, Daniel. Haven't you noticed? We haven't connected in weeks, months, even. I turned, still holding the t-shirt in my hands, and looked at her like she was a stranger who had just wandered into my home. You're right. We haven't connected. And you know what? I wonder why that is. Her eyes started to shine, like she was about to summon up tears at the perfect dramatic moment. The old me, the guy who wanted peace more than truth, would have caved right there. But now? Now I saw it for what it was. A tactic. The silence stretched between us. I could almost hear the unspoken words buzzing in the air. She wanted me to break, to second-guess myself, to swallow my doubts the way I'd done 100 times before. But I was done choking down things I couldn't digest anymore. So I brushed past her and stepped into the hallway. Where are you going? She called after me, her voice cracking but still sharp. Guest room, I tossed over my shoulder. Since I'm apparently the paranoid one, I figure I might as well start practicing bachelor life now instead of later. I didn't stick around for whatever excuse she was about to cook up. That night, lying on the stiff mattress in the guest room, staring at the streetlight glow sneaking through the blinds, a thought hit me like cold water. I wasn't heartbroken. Not yet. What I felt was heavier, stranger, like grieving somebody who's still alive but already gone. And as I lay there in the quiet, one thought kept looping through my head: if she thought I was bluffing, she was about to find out just how serious I really was. The guest bed was awful. Springs jabbed into my back, the sheets smelled like dust, and the pillow was about as soft as cardboard. But for the first time in months, I actually slept. No tossing, no fake cuddles, no pretending everything was fine. Just silence, heavy, honest, and mine. When I came downstairs the next morning, Claire was already in the kitchen. Hair yanked back, face scrubbed clean, trying to hit the reset button on her image. Coffee brewing, a mug set neatly at my place. Morning, she said softly, like she thought she could whisper us back to normal. Morning. I sat but didn't touch the mug. She hovered for a beat, then sat down across from me. About last night. I think we both said things we didn't mean. I raised an eyebrow. I meant every word. Her face tightened. Daniel, come on. You're acting like I've done something unforgivable. I leaned back, arms crossed. Didn't you? That landed. She flinched, just a tiny flicker, but enough to see. It was the kind of expression you can't fake before your brain slaps on the mask. Who is he? I asked. She blinked. What? You heard me. Who is he? Her hands tightened around her mug. There's no one. You're inventing stories. I chuckled, low and humorless. If I'm inventing them, why do they match your late-night calls? Your sudden girls' nights? Your new habit of showering at night instead of in the morning, something you never did before. You think I don't notice? Her lips parted like she wanted to argue, but nothing came out. Just silence. And that silence was louder than any confession. I pushed my chair back and stood. You know what the cruelest part is, Claire? You haven't even given me the dignity of the truth. You're making me piece it together like some bad detective in my own house. She followed me toward the door. Where are you going? Work. At 7:30 in the morning? Better than sitting here listening to you rehearse excuses. Her voice cracked. Daniel, please. Can't we just talk about this without you accusing me? I paused at the doorway, my hand on the knob. Talking requires honesty. Until you're ready to try that, there's nothing to say. I left her standing there barefoot on the tile, coffee cooling in her hands. All day at work I hammered nails into cedar boards, the smell of sawdust sharp in the air, but my head wasn't on the job. It was on her phone. On that number. On the tremor in her voice when I asked who he was. By lunch my stomach was in knots, not from hunger but from the weight of knowing. During break, I pulled out my own phone, copied the number, pasted it into a search bar, and waited. The name popped up instantly. A man. Not a coworker. Not a cousin. Not some business contact. I didn't recognize the face, but the realization hit like a punch to the ribs. He wasn't a ghost. He was real. And my wife had brought him into our lives, into her time, into her secrets. That evening, when I came home, Claire tried to act normal. Chicken roasting in the oven, music playing low in the background. But I saw it for what it was, theater. She was running a script, hoping I'd forget my lines and slide back into the role of the clueless, forgiving husband. But I wasn't her audience anymore. I was the critic. And the cracks in her performance were showing. The smell of roasted chicken used to mean comfort, used to mean home. That night, it just smelled like desperation. Claire moved around the kitchen with forced ease, humming off-key, setting plates like she was hosting a dinner party neither of us wanted. She even opened a bottle of my favorite Cabernet, the one we saved for anniversaries. Sit, she said softly, almost pleading. I sat, but the weight of her performance pressed against me harder than the chair. She carved the chicken, set a piece on my plate, and smiled like she hadn't been crying earlier. I thought we could reset, she said. Just us. No fighting. No accusations. Just dinner. Dinner, I repeated, swirling the wine in my glass. For a few minutes she kept the small talk alive, asked about work, nodded at my short answers, tried to slip back into the rhythm we used to have. But her eyes kept darting to her phone on the counter. Every buzz of a notification made her flinch. Finally, I set my fork down. You know, Claire, it's not the affair that kills me. Her hand froze mid-cut. There is no. Don't, I said flatly. We're past denial. What kills me isn't that you're talking to someone else. It's that you're sitting here, feeding me chicken, pouring me wine, pretending like I don't already know. Her lip trembled. She tried to hold my gaze but her eyes dropped to the table. I leaned forward. Do you love him? Her head snapped up, eyes wide. What? No. Daniel, no. It's not like that. I stared at her and asked, my voice rising for the first time, then what is it? What's he giving you that you stopped wanting from me? She opened her mouth like she had an answer ready, then shut it again, searching for words. Finally, in a voice so soft I barely caught it, she whispered, it was just attention. He listened. He made me feel, noticed. I leaned back in my chair, heat rising in my chest. Noticed. So the 2 decades I've spent working my hands raw, keeping this place together, making sure you had everything you needed, none of that counted as noticing? Tears gathered in her eyes. It's not the same, she murmured. You're right, it's not the same, I muttered under my breath. The room went still except for the low hum of the refrigerator. I took a slow sip of wine, not because I wanted it, but because I needed something to stop myself from shouting. Finally, I asked quietly, what's his name? She swallowed hard before speaking. She said it like saying it too loud would make it more real. I nodded slowly. That was all I needed to hear. Her tears spilled over, dripping onto her plate. "Daniel, please. It wasn't supposed to go this far. I just—" "Save it," I said, standing up. "You wanted attention, and you got it. But you forgot something." She looked up at me, desperate. "What?" "You forgot that I noticed too." I walked out, leaving her at the table with her cooling dinner and even colder excuses. That night, back in the guest room, I pulled out my phone and typed in the man's name. His face popped up again, clearer this time. Profile pictures, tagged photos, restaurant check-ins. He wasn't a ghost. He was real. And now I had him. I wasn't sure yet what I'd do with that information, but one thing was crystal clear. He'd stepped into my marriage without an invitation. And I was about to return the favor. The next morning, Claire moved around the kitchen like the night before had never happened. She hummed softly, robe tied, hair pulled back, as if wiping her memory clean could erase mine too. She poured me coffee without asking and slid the mug across the counter with a weak smile. I didn't touch it. Instead, I set my phone face up on the counter. Her eyes flicked down and then froze. On the screen was his picture, the man whose name she'd whispered through tears the night before. The color drained from her face. "Daniel." I raised an eyebrow. "Recognize him?" She swallowed hard. "Please don't." "Don't what?" "Pretend?" "Pretend I don't know what's been going on." I leaned in closer. "You think I'm just some clueless husband too busy swinging a hammer to notice when his wife checks out of the marriage?" Her eyes filled again, but I was past tears. Past sympathy. I slipped the phone into my pocket, grabbed my keys, and walked out without another word. I didn't go to work. Instead, I parked in a lot a couple of blocks from where the guy lived. Finding him wasn't hard. His address was public, tied to his business license. From what I could tell, he was some kind of sales rep, judging by his endless stream of posts about conferences and networking events. His building was a bland brick apartment complex, the kind of place you rent when you're trying to look successful without actually being it. I sat there in my truck with the engine off, watching the entrance. At 8:20 a.m., he walked out. Mid-30s, pressed shirt, loafers polished enough to blind someone in the sun. He carried himself like a man who thought the world owed him something. And this was the guy Claire thought was worth risking our marriage for. He didn't notice me. Why would he? To him, I was invisible, just the faceless husband in the background of the life he thought he was stealing. But as I watched him climb into his shiny car, a strange calm settled over me. I didn't feel rage, not the kind that makes you slam fists or yell into the steering wheel. I felt something colder. Focused. Because men like him only win when the husband plays the fool. And I wasn't about to play the fool anymore. That evening, when I walked back into the house, Claire was waiting in the living room. She sat curled up on the couch, a blanket over her legs, looking small and fragile. "You didn't go to work today," she said carefully. "Nope." Her hands tightened on the blanket. "Where were you?" "Out." "Out where?" I met her eyes and held them. "Getting used to bachelor life, remember?" Her face crumpled. "Daniel, please don't do this. We can fix this." It wasn't. Wasn't what? Real? Serious? What do you want me to believe, Claire? That this was just some game? Tears ran down her cheeks. I made a mistake. That's all it was. A mistake. I let the silence stretch until it became unbearable. Then I said quietly, mistakes are forgetting to pay the power bill. Leaving the oven on. Sleeping with someone else, that's a choice. She sobbed quietly into her hands. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel broken by it. I felt free. Because her tears weren't my burden anymore. Later that night, lying awake in the guest room staring at the ceiling, I made up my mind. If she thought this was just going to be swept under the rug, she was wrong. Tomorrow I wasn't just going to watch him from a distance. I was going to make sure he knew exactly whose life he'd stepped into. I found him at lunch. Sales guys are creatures of habit, you can set your watch by them. He ate at the same downtown cafe every Wednesday. Ordered the same salad with extra chicken. Always on his phone, loud enough for strangers to overhear how important he thought he was. I walked in and spotted him right away. Hair perfectly gelled, shirt stiff with starch, watch flashing every time he waved his hand like punctuation. I ordered a coffee I didn't even want, sat 2 tables over, and waited. He didn't notice me at first. Why would he? To him, I was just another face in the crowd. But then our eyes met. I saw it, that flicker of recognition. He froze mid-sentence, fork hovering halfway to his mouth. Then, slowly, he set it down. I leaned forward on my elbows, voice low but steady. You're him. His jaw tightened. I don't know what you're talking about. I gave him a cold smile. I told him he didn't have to explain, because I already knew. He looked around the cafe like a man scanning for witnesses, like someone figuring out who might overhear. Typical. Guys like him are comfortable sneaking around in the dark but fall apart under bright lights. Look, he finally said, his voice dropping a notch, almost gentle now. This isn't what you think. I gave a small laugh. It's exactly what I think. The silence between us hung heavy, thick like a storm about to break. Then he cleared his throat. She told me you two were unhappy, he said. That you were basically done. Heat rose in me, but I kept my voice steady. Funny. She never mentioned that to me. He stared down at his plate. I didn't mean to cause trouble. Then why did you? I asked. He had nothing. Just that small, defeated shuffle of a man who thought he was smooth, until reality showed up wearing a wedding ring. I stood, dropped a few bills to cover his untouched salad, and leaned in close so only he could hear me. You don't call her. You don't text her. You don't even think about her. Because if you do, I'll make sure your boss, your clients, and every person you've charmed will know exactly what kind of man you really are. His face drained of color. I straightened, grabbed my untouched coffee, and walked out without looking back. That night, Claire was waiting when I got home. She must have been pacing for hours, the sharp edge in her voice gave it away. Where were you? She asked. Out, I said. Don't do that, she snapped. Don't shut me out like this. I told you I made a mistake. I set my keys on the counter. A mistake ends. Yours kept going. And today, I ended it. Her face went pale. What do you mean? I mean I talked to him. I made sure he understood. Her eyes went wide, horrified. You didn't. Daniel, what did you do? Relax, I said. He's fine. But he knows the score now. He knows I'm not some clueless guy sitting at home waiting for scraps. She sank into a chair and buried her face in her hands. Oh my God. I stared at her, waiting for anger, denial, maybe a fight. But what came out of her mouth was worse. He'll hate me now, she whispered. Not, I'm sorry. Not, I love you. Not, can we fix this? Just that. And in that moment, something inside me broke. Because it wasn't me she was worried about losing, it was him. That night, lying in the guest room again, I saw the truth so clearly it almost felt peaceful. Claire had already chosen. She just hadn't realized that I had too. The next morning, I didn't wait for her to ask where I was going. I packed a bag. Just the basics, jeans, shirts, my tools, the few things that felt like they were really mine. She sat at the kitchen table, pale and silent, watching every folded shirt like I was slowly erasing her life. "You're leaving," she said finally, her voice brittle. "I'm preparing," I corrected. "For what?" "For life as a single man." Her face twisted. "You don't mean that. You're just angry. We can work this out." I zipped the duffel and slung it over my shoulder. "I'm not angry, Claire. That's the problem. I should be. I should be yelling, throwing things, demanding answers. But I'm calm, too calm. And you know what that tells me? That I've already let go." She flinched like the words cut deeper than a scream. At work, I buried myself in the job. Swinging a hammer, cutting boards, running measurements, it was the closest thing to therapy I had. But even as sweat soaked my shirt, my mind spun, divorce lawyers, splitting property, what it meant to unravel 20 years of a shared life. That night I stayed late at the shop, telling myself it was about finishing a project when really, I just couldn't face home. When I finally walked in, Claire was waiting in the living room. Eyes red. Mascara smudged. "You can't just give up," she said, her voice raw. "After everything we've built." I dropped my bag by the stairs. "I'm not the one who gave up, Claire. I was here. I was working. I was loving you the best way I knew how. You're the one who went looking somewhere else." She shook her head, tears streaking down her cheeks. "I never meant for this to happen. I didn't plan it. Affairs don't just happen," I shot back. "You don't trip and fall into someone else's arms. You made choices. And now you're facing the consequences." Her sobs filled the room. Once, that sound would have broken me. Now it was just noise, loud, distracting, but empty. "You don't understand," she cried. "He doesn't matter. Not like you. You're my husband. You're my life." "Funny way of showing it," I said. That night I slept in the guest room again, staring at the ceiling. The duffel sat ready on the floor. I thought about calling a lawyer. About moving to an apartment across town. Even about what being single at my age might look like, weekends fishing with buddies, fixing up the old truck I'd neglected, maybe learning to enjoy the silence instead of fearing it. But under all those thoughts, something else crept in, sadness. Not for her, for me. For the man who had spent years proving his worth to someone who was always looking past him for something shinier. I turned over, pulled the blanket tight, and made myself a promise. Tomorrow, I'd stop preparing. Tomorrow, I'd start acting. When I came downstairs the next morning, Claire was there again, sitting at the table with a stack of papers. Not divorce papers, marriage counseling brochures. She pushed them toward me with trembling hands. "Please," she whispered. "Just try. One session. If you still want to leave after that, I won't fight you." I looked at the glossy pamphlets, at the smiling couples holding hands like they'd never seen betrayal up close, and I almost laughed. "Counseling doesn't work on ghosts," I said, brushing past her. Because that's what she was to me now, a ghost of the woman I married. And I was done living in a haunted house. That Friday I met with a lawyer. His office smelled like leather and old books, the kind of place where endings get written up in neat legal paragraphs. He asked the usual questions: assets, kids, none, and how long we'd been married. Income. I answered every question like it was just another line on a form, calm and steady, like I was filling out paperwork for a job I never wanted but somehow ended up needing. When he asked if reconciliation was still on the table, I only shook my head. "She's already patched things up with someone else," I said, my voice flat. He didn't push me on it. Guys in his business can tell when a man's already buried a marriage deep down in his heart. That night, when I got home, Claire was there again. She'd made an effort this time, makeup done, hair fixed, dressed like the woman I once fell for, as if a new look could erase the past and undo everything. "Where were you?" she asked softly. "The lawyer's office," I told her. The color drained from her face. She stepped back like my words had physically knocked her. "You didn't." "I did." Her eyes filled instantly. "Daniel, no. Please. We can fix this. I'll block his number. I'll delete everything. We can start over." I set my keys on the counter, leaned against it, and just studied her. "You don't get it, do you? This isn't about him," I said. "It's about you. About choices you made long before I even knew his name." She shook her head hard. "No, it's not too late. I can prove it to you. I'll go to counseling. I cut her off. Counseling can't bring back trust. And trust is already gone." She buried her face in her hands, sobbing, her shoulders trembling. This time, I didn't step forward to hold her. Not anymore. The next morning, I packed up the truck. Just the essentials again, but this time, it wasn't practice. My clothes. My tools. My old recliner I'd rescued from the garage where she'd banished it years ago. She stood in the doorway, holding her robe tight around herself like it could keep her life from falling apart. "Where will you go?" she whispered. "Doesn't matter," I said. "Anywhere but here." Her tears spilled down her cheeks. "I never stopped loving you." I paused, one hand on the tailgate. "You might have loved me, Claire," I said, "but you didn't respect me. And without respect, love's just noise." Her sobs followed me as I climbed into the truck, started it up, and pulled out of the driveway. The road stretched ahead, long and empty, the morning sun spilling across the asphalt. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, I felt something I didn't expect. Peace. Not joy. Not relief. Just a quiet kind of peace you feel when you finally quit a fight you were never meant to win. I didn't know exactly what bachelor life would look like. Maybe it'd be lonely at first. Maybe it'd hurt in ways I couldn't even picture yet. But it would be mine. Honest. No secrets. No games. No glowing phone screens at midnight. And as I drove, windows down and wind cutting through the cab, it hit me. Sometimes the bravest thing a man can do isn't fighting to hold on, it's knowing when it's time to let go. And at last, mercifully, I had.